and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster. So, Penny, Banewort, Deadly Dwale, Devil's Cherries, Death's Herb. These are all names for Deadly Nightshade, also known
Hey.
as belladonna.
Hey.
So while most of us probably recognize this name from movies like Practical Magic or Nightmare Before Christmas, you may not know the full history of the wild uses of this plant and the many roles it has played throughout history. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what this is, what it do, and how you can save yourself.
Yes, please. I love me some spooky botany.
And I literally was like, it's a poison episode. Penny's gonna be psyched.
Yes, it's true.
So, what is belladonna? The full name for this is Atropa belladonna, or like I said previously, known as deadly nightshade before it was given a proper genus. This plant is a tall shrub. It can grow up to 7 feet tall. And it has a really beautiful deep purple bell-shaped flower with 5 petals, and also has dark berries that are similar in size to blueberries. So it really is a gorgeous plant, as the name would even suggest. Belladonna is actually Italian for beautiful woman. And
Hey.
there's a reason for that, but we'll get into that a little later. And its berries are really, supposedly, from people who have tried it, are very sweet and juicy, and are unfortunately particularly attractive to children a lot of the time. Oh, and did I mention that every single part of this plant is extremely poisonous?
Hey.
Yay! So this plant definitely has a reputation, but it has also been used widely throughout history for medicine, cosmetic purposes, and even as an antidote. So let's learn a little bit more about this misunderstood beauty. I'm going to start by bringing us straight to some sweet Midge's Science Corner. And we're going to talk a little bit about the chemistry behind belladonna. I know you weren't prepared for Midge to teach you chemistry today, and I probably won't. But the original name of belladonna, as we mentioned, was deadly nightshade. So, as that would suggest, it is a part of the nightshade family, which is the same family as a lot of vegetables like peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, and even potatoes. So, some nightshades are ingestible, but this family also includes lots of poisonous plants like mandrake and henbane. So, nightshades contain alkaloids, which that's just a fancy word for like compounds that have certain known physiological effects on a body. And they contain an alkaloid called solanine. And all nightshades have this, including the foods, but solanine is a toxin and in very high concentrations can be very dangerous. So some people have like allergies to nightshade vegetables because of.
Yeah, I've heard of
Mhm.
that.
And they actually, like, for people like me, hotties with IBS, uh, they can really wreak havoc just on your digestive system, generally, because they have these alkaloids. But uh, believe it or not, too, I read several weird happenstances with nightshades. There have been instances where people have gotten solanine poisoning from eating green potatoes.
Oh.
So the concentrations can exist in high levels in these foods. But when we're looking at belladonna and the other poisonous nightshades, we're specifically looking at an alkaloid called atropine. And all nightshade poisoning basically works the same way. It attacks the nervous system. So the alkaloids in the plants inhibit the action of a chemical in your body called, I hope I'm going to say this right, acetylcholine.
That sounds
Um,
legit.
it sounds legit. We're going to keep it. And that is the chemical that allows your nerves to communicate with each other. So essentially, these alkaloids shut down your neurotransmitters,
Ooh,
which is no good.
no good.
No good at all. So, nightshade plants have several different types of alkaloids that work this way, and depending on which compound you're talking about, they can target different areas of the body. So, for example, there is a compound found in these plants also called scopolamine that has specifically effects on the muscles around the eyes. But when talking about atropine, the main compound in belladonna that we're going to focus on today, it most affects the digestive system, the lungs, and the heart, which is what makes it so deadly.
Those are all very important
Very
parts.
important things.
Those are kind of the main ones.
Those are the whole things that make the body go. Uh, in fact, the genus name, Atropa, comes from the ancient Greek name Atropos, which was the fate that was in charge of cutting the thread to end a life.
Ooh.
So when the people came along to name it, they said, "We're gonna name it after death, but also a pretty lady."
Hell yeah.
Belladonna's the original femme fatale.
Oh yes.
A lethal dose of atropine can vary widely. It was wild reading about this. They're like, well, it could be this. It's giving the dream episode. Like it was, I was like, well, it could be like none at all, but it could be like you have to like shove a whole plant up your butt. Like it was
Who's to
wild.
say?
Who's to say? But the most widely agreed upon dosage seems to be that as little as 600 milligrams, which is the equivalent of eating 2 berries, is
Ooh.
an overdose amount and lethal to most adults. Uh, so this is very dangerous, and that's why I said it's bad. It's a very attractive looking plant, and the berries look really good, and a lot of children where this grows wild tend to be intrigued by the berries, which
Yes.
is bad. There's even a record of a man getting atropine poisoning from eating a rabbit that had recently ingested a belladonna berry.
Mm.
So it's very potent. But I will say, belladonna has not always been considered deadly. And as I kind of alluded to in the beginning, the name belladonna was given to it because Venetian women during the Renaissance period would use distilled belladonna eye drops to dilate their pupils.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a cosmetic thing to make their eyes look more large and entrancing. Um, but then overuse of the drops could result in anything from face swelling to hallucinations and delirium to complete blindness.
Just a few casual side effects.
Yeah, I mean, beauty is pain, right?
That's true. Well, that's it. I mean, not to. I don't want to shame Venetian women because I even still remember when they would like put up when there was the commercials for whatever it was that you like made your eyelashes longer. It
Oh,
was
Latisse.
the Latisse, and it would just be like could permanently damage the pigmentation of your eyes, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is worth it.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I'll just put on falsies. Thank you so much.
Right? Yeah. So we still do it.
Yeah, that's very true. I always had that. This is a little off kilter, but here we go. I always had that with lip scents. I
Oh
was like,
yeah. Hmm.
this doesn't seem like it should be this hard to get off of my face. And I feel like
Right. It's like
years
I don't
from
know
now,
about this.
we're going to find out like that was not good for your body.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, people were sticking sticking poison right in their eyes. And there was a recorded case in which belladonna drops caused a person to believe they were a tailor for a full day. And
That's
they just
incredibly specific.
I know. And they just went about their day as a tailor, mending clothes and tailoring garments until they slipped into a coma.
But were they
And
good at it is my question.
I
Did it
don't
transform them into a tailor?
That's what I wanted to know, and there was no documentation. I was like, okay,
Rude.
but did they like discover a secret talent? It seems
Right.
really.
You guys are leaving out the important parts of this story.
I almost hope it's the like other alternative though, just somebody
Right. They're
like
just like ripping holes and things.
destroying
Like,
garments.
I'm the best tailor.
So yeah, it can definitely cause hallucinations. Also, along with opium poppy and other plants, belladonna was believed to be one of the components that made up what was called witch's flying ointment. If you've seen The Love Witch, there's a scene where she's
Mm.
like rubbing her flying ointment on her, and I actually, when I watched that film, didn't have any concept for what was happening.
Yeah.
But I guess that there was this idea that this ointment helped witches fly to their gatherings, and get on their little broomsticks and go wee. But it's more likely that the combination of plants were causing hallucinations, and helping that kind of helps to explain why people would use it in spells to like induce second sight.
Yeah. Yeah, when you
uh,
I was like, "Ah, yes, flying
Flying, wink,
ointment," you
wink.
know,
Yeah.
when you want the sensation of flying.
Right, and I think it was often too kind of the idea of, like, astral projection, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And the belladonna berry is heavily tied into the idea of, like, the Bacchanalia festivals and things, of
Mm,
people kinda altering their state to experience different levels of humanity. Um, but of course, belladonna also has had plenty of more sinister uses. It is, after all, a poison. Nightshade throughout the history has been a killer of kings, emperors, and warriors. The Roman military used a paste that they created from the plant to make poison tipped arrows for their archers, and would use that to poison the enemy, but not without, it didn't instantly kill them. It would make
yeah,
them hallucinate and, all kinds of things. We'll get into the symptoms of poisoning here in a bit, but what a way to go. Not only
yeah.
are you shot, but you're having all kinds of crazy things going on,
But you tripping
but
balls.
you're tripping balls at the same time. The Romans also used belladonna as a biological weapon to contaminate food reserves of their enemies, which is so
Mm,
mean.
very mean.
But don't worry, because then the wives of both Roman emperors Augustus and Claudius poisoned them with
Nice.
atropine. So uh, they got what was coming after using it on the enemy. So what does belladonna poisoning look like? The first signs don't appear for 10 to 20 minutes after belladonna has entered
Ooh.
the body. So that's also kind of like smarmy because you don't even
Yeah,
know
that's
until
that's
it's too
extra
late.
dangerous.
Right. Like your body's already fully taken it on before you even know what's happened. Depending on the dose received, symptoms can be more or less pronounced, obviously, but in a case of mild poisoning, you're going to get some agitation in the body, in the nervous system, and they can last for 8 to 10 hours,
Ooh.
which eventually leads to people just being exhausted and falling asleep. Um, but severe poisoning with belladonna can manifest as complete vascular collapse, respiratory failure,
Failure.
failure, failure, coma, and death, obviously. When you are experiencing the poisoning, you might. I feel like a medical commercial. Like
Yes.
side effects may include dry mouth,
Dude.
dry eyes.
Coma or death.
But yeah, dry mouth and eyes, blurred vision, hoarseness of voice, extreme thirst, the feeling of being unable to swallow. Most specifically, it is known for increasing heart rate and causing arrhythmia. So it
Mm.
kind of explodes your vascular system. Uh, in addition to all those physiological symptoms, it also has a lot of effect on your parasympathetic nervous system. So there's something called toxic psychosis, where you might experience irritability, aggression, lack of coordination, feeling disoriented, mania, delirium, and pretending
Thinking
you're
you're
a
a
tailor.
tailor.
Exactly. Hallucinations. Um, so, with all of that being said, you might find yourself thinking, well, heck, I'm going to stay as far away from this plant as humanly possible.
That
Uh,
sounds like a fair assumption.
right. But interestingly, belladonna, specifically the atropine compound, actually has a lot of medicinal uses.
What?
What? And the plant was so heavily associated for so much of history with just like death that it went completely unstudied. So once we got to a point with chemistry where we could isolate compounds within
Mm.
a plant, they started realizing that it actually had quite a bit of usefulness to it.
Mm,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah, so
You
they
would be
started
like, "I don't fucks with that." And now you're like, "Oh, wait,
right. Well,
maybe we could a little bit."
right, and well, and it was like I said, every part of the plant, the leaf, the root, the berry, the flower, like every part of it is poisonous, and has so many different every plant has so many different compounds in it that they were like, well, we don't know what's causing what and what we can,
Mhm.
so they're just like, don't touch it. Which
Just don't.
fair. Um, but once they start isolating the compounds and studying them, nightshade actually began being used as an early surgical anesthetic.
Yeah.
And in 1803, a Scottish pharmacist named Andrew Duncan wrote about a lot of the positive uses of atropic plants, including treatment for a lot of nerve conditions, including like epilepsy and palsy, and even said it could be used to treat the plague.
Sure, why not?
Why not? But he was on to something. However, much like mummy powder and other things that are historically bad for you, before we learned more and figured out the actual uses of it in medicine, belladonna had a brief stint as a common cure all.
Ah.
And Penny, I'm going to give you just one guess of what time period this was.
Was it the crazy Victorians?
It might have
Oh
been
my
the
gosh.
Victorian era. Yep, it's back at it again. Those crazy
They're
Victorians.
getting wild, man. They're like, what can we take? What can we do? What weird shit can
what,
we eat?
what can we put on our bodies? And you know what? Since we're here, now seems like a great time to once again mention that we have
Hey.
new merch available for Ghouls
What?
Night In. We have a very cute new design for our Those Crazy Victorians thread that seems to weave its way through all of our historic episodes.
It
Really,
really does.
it really does. Really cute design featuring lots of fun things that we've talked about through the Victorian era, like eggshells and hair art and arsenic green. And you can find that at our website at midrunsert.com/shop. We've got it on sweatshirts and t-shirts and stickers and a really cool tote bag. So if you love those crazy Victorians as much as we do, go check that out.
Get at it.
So what were the Victorians doing here with belladonna? They were making plasters, which
Mm.
were sort of like a old-timey icy hot patch. It's like a white cloth covered in a paste that you could stick on your body and use for general pain relief. So they were mixing up belladonna. From what I could see, they were technically like onto something. It wasn't great the way in which it was being used, but they like I don't think anybody like hella died. Kind of like the mummy powder. The oh my gosh, what was that compound called? Some
Mumia?
Yeah, but it was like the buramine or something. The
Oh,
like
yeah.
the resin compound. But it was kind of like that. Like nobody was actively dying, but people weren't feeling great from it either.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. Uh, Then during World War II, atropine was actually found to be an antidote for poisoning, which is wild.
What?
How can poison be an antidote for poison?
Uno reverse.
Literally, double it and give it to the next person. So it's not technically an antidote. Like it doesn't stop it, but it does.
Mhm.
So basically, they found out that like when nerve gas was being used as an attack,
Mhm.
nerve gas works by breaking down the nervous system also, but it slows the heart rate to the point of stopping. So belladonna compounds were used to speed the heart rate back up to counteract the
Okay.
gases. So there were small devices called syrettes that were distributed to the troops. They were kind of like a syringe, but they had like a. I looked at pictures of them. They kind of reminded me of like what you give your dog like flea and tick medicine out of,
Oh,
like the
yeah.
like Advantix, like a little
Mhm.
tube um, with a needle coming out of the end that the troops could like distribute to themselves that had atropine in it, that they could use if they had been attacked. And this usage is actually still recognized today. Atropine is like listed as one of the like necessary medicines in like pharmacology books.
No, alright.
And it is also able to be used as an antidote to opium and chloroform poisoning for the same reason, because it'll counteract that slowing heart rate
Mhm.
effect. There are other various medicinal preparations of belladonna currently in use. Uh, Kind of funny, it came full circle. Ophthalmologists do use atropine.
What?
Yes. So again, people were kind of onto something, but also not. And so when you get your eyes dilated at the ophthalmologist, or if you have an eye surgery, a particular preparation of atropine is what they are using on your eyes. And while the Victorians can at times be wild, again, they were onto something with the topical preparation of belladonna. We now have a safer version of plasters. Atropine is often found in certain lotions and salves to relieve pain from sciatica, gout, and cardiac palpitations.
Alright.
Yeah.
Good for
Uh,
you, Belladonna.
Good job, belladonna. She can also be found in lots of over-the-counter cold medicines to help with cough suppression, and as we talked about earlier in this episode, people like me with IBS can also use certain preparations of atropine that will help relax gut muscles and things to prevent symptoms of dietary disease.
Alright.
So it has lots of fun things, much like the two ladies who run this podcast. Belladonna is beautiful and deadly, but can also be extremely helpful when handled
Yes.
properly.
There you go. I was gonna say, dangerous, but surprisingly helpful.
But surprisingly helpful. Exactly. So that is my little delve into this plant. I honestly didn't know hardly anything about it. I my I didn't well, A, I didn't realize that deadly nightshade and belladonna were the same
Mhm.
plant. But I think I got the idea that I wanted to look into this after rewatching Practical Magic when she says like the belladonna is in my bag. I was like, tell me more.
Ooh,
Um,
see, and when you were talking about it, I was thinking, of Sally with her deadly nightshade canister
yeah,
in Nightmare Before
yes,
Christmas.
exactly. Uh, and I also was laughing when it said that the lethal dose is 600 milligrams. You've seen Practical Magic, right?
Yes.
The amount of belladonna that they put in his liquor is that has to be like 5 times the lethal
Yeah,
amount.
he's done.
And then they're like, oh my god, he's dead. I'm like, yeah, queen, learn your herbology, god damn. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening. If you use atropine, do it in a safe way that is prescribed by a pharmacist.
Yes.
And if you've got belladonna growing wild, because it does grow wild in certain areas of the United States, know how to identify it and be sure to keep your children away from the berries. I read one thing that said that people used to tell children that if they ate the berries off of belladonna, they would, quote, meet the devil face to face to keep
Ooh.
them from eating it.
See, I was gonna say that would be intriguing to
Yeah, I'd be
me,
like,
like,
pop, pop.
you get to meet the devil face to face?
Bring, what did we call him in the live? Lucifer Lumiere.
Yes.
Bring that noise over here.
Yes, come on.
If you would like to see what belladonna looks like so you can properly identify it in the wild, you should give us a follow over on Instagram at Ghouls
Ooh.
Night in Pod. And if you are enjoying this podcast, you can leave us a rating or a review wherever you listen. Those really help us reach new audiences. And if your podcatcher of choice will not let you leave us a review there, you can go back to that Instagram and send us one in a direct message. And I believe that Penny has a DM submitted review to read for us today.
I certainly do. This review is from LeMay Macabre. who says, Ghouls Night In is an unending delight. Midge and Penny humorously touch on all things macabre, bizarre, and eerily entertaining. Victorian practices, they got 'em. Scary movies, check. Monster cereal, you know it. Queer representation in horror, absolutely. They pull in personal experiences, dutiful research, and lighthearted banter that leaves this monster hankering for more every week. If you need a Halloween fix to make it to October and beyond, this is the ultimate year round podcast to help you get through. 10 out of 10 hair wreaths.
Amazing. What a delightfully written review. Thank you,
Right?
LeMay.
So sweet. Thank you very much.
Well, yes, feel free to send us your reviews that way, and we might just read them live right here on Ghouls Night In. And if you are looking for me, you can find me across the web at Midge Munster.
And if you are looking for me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And until next time,
Good.